A Napster moment is when someone who has no business being in your business comes along and puts you out of business. That is my favorite quote from the guest I have today, Mike Maddock. Mike is a disruptor, and Mike has studied disruptors. So think about Uber, largest taxi company in the world, and they don't own a single car. Airbnb, largest hotel provider in the world, or overnight stay provider in the world, and they don't own a single piece of real estate. These are disruptive companies, and there's a reason that those founders and that those companies have done so well because of how they go about business and how they view an industry. And Mike is going to break that apart today and talk about what it means to be a disruptor, how to channel a disruptor if you're not a disruptor and you have disruptors who work in your company because they're very valuable. And we talk through all those frameworks. And he's just a great guy and really fun, actually. I had a lot of fun, and his book is outstanding. And we take a deep dive into his book. Enjoy this one. He is an entrepreneur, inventor, writer, and keynote speaker, and he's the CEO and founder of Maddock Douglas, an internationally recognized innovation consulting firm that has worked with more than 25% of the Fortune 100. And that's to design and launch new products, services, experiences, and business models. He's a serial entrepreneur, and Mike has founded 6 successful businesses. He's a longtime Forbes contributor and the co-author of 4 books. One of them we're going to talk about today is called Plan D, Lessons from the World's Most Successful Disruptors. And I'm most of the way through it. I didn't get the book till yesterday before this recording, but I couldn't put it down last night because it's outstanding. It's outstanding. And there's some wonderful quotes in there. So we're going to talk about that book today. I've got a lot of questions for him on that. So Mike, with that intro, welcome to the ThriveMore show.
Hey, Roger. Good to be with you. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was really excited coming in this morning because I literally couldn't put that book down last night. If you could, I think our audience would benefit most from your experience in working with and cultivating, quote unquote, disruptors in the workplace. And that term seems to be thrown around loosely by a lot of young entrepreneurs and whatnot. I would love to get a very experienced business person like yourself, an entrepreneur, get your definition of a disruptor and what that really truly means in a marketplace.
Sure. I used to say that disruptors are people that blow shit up for the good of the whole, pardon the language, that they can come into any room and break things better. They see something they don't like and they just won't sit for it. But after having been asked that question for many times, I think a better definition is disruptors had the ability to see possibilities where other people see problems. And I think those are the keys to the castle, that they can see something that is clearly broken and they believe that they can actually be the person to make it better, even when a company, a team, an industry is saying that's impossible.
Yeah. And you give a lot of examples. I want to jump right into your book. And if you're watching on YouTube, guys, you can see it. I'm holding Plan D by Mike Maddock. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, this book's available where books are sold. I got mine off of Amazon. And in Plan D, if we can jump right in, and I've been running around my office this morning telling anybody who will listen to me this quote because it just hit me like a lightning bolt. A Napster moment is when someone who has no business being in your business comes along and puts you out of business. That is gold. So will you talk to that and just kind of unpack that? Because I love that.
So Napster was started by 2 teenagers named Sean. They're both named Sean. And if you think about the history of Napster, anybody who doesn't know what it is, it's a line of code that solved a problem. And the problem was they wanted to listen to one song at a time. And record industry executives said, that's impossible. You can't do that. You need to buy the whole album. Now, young people today can't even imagine not being able to download a song and listen to one song at a time. But during the time Sean and Sean were trying to solve this problem, the CEO of Sony, who had just watched something like 85% of his record stores close because people weren't buying albums anymore, said Napster was not a mosquito worthy of swatting. So that's an example of how businesses and executives kind of get stuck in a business model that makes them money, and they're unwilling or unable to hear the market say, we want something different. And that's how Napster moments happen. It's when someone with no business being in a business comes along and puts you out of business. And their unfair competitive advantage is they don't know the rules. They don't care about the rules. They just want to solve a problem. And so many great entrepreneurs have caused Napster moments by being courageous enough to say, why not? Why doesn't somebody fix this?
Yeah. I love that. I chewed on that and took a picture of it, was texting it out last night to several business colleagues. You write, I want to dovetail on that because you also write about, maybe even the same chapter, you write about industry experience being a potential blind spot, and that the status quo, somebody coming in and saying, oh, I've got a ton of experience in this industry, you don't look at as a positive a lot of times. I'd love for you to
the
touch on
data
that.
shows that the people that disrupt industries are not usually from the industry they're disrupting. My favorite saying in the world is, you can't read the label when you're sitting inside the jar.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? That's the expertise trap. If you've been working on a challenge, a problem, a relationship, an industry for more than 6 months, congratulations, you are now an expert, which means that you know what works, you know what you can afford, you know what's legal, you know what you've tried in the past, you know what your boss really wants you to do, you know. And the more you know, the harder it is for you to see possibility when it's walking right in front of you. So the first thing I say to CEOs when they say we need to start an innovation group is try to find someone that has solved problems that you're facing in parallel ways in different industries, because they can take their experience and bring a certain amount of naivete to the challenge that will allow them to see possibility while the rest of the folks on their team are still looking at the same old problems.
Yeah. Disruptors start with hate. That's another. I just again, your book is just chock full. Like every page, I'm underlining and dog-earing. I'm dog-earing the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that. Disruptors start with hate.
You're just these lob pitches. Thank you so much. Okay, Barry Calpino, God rest his soul. Ironically, went to the same high school I did, but I met him in a brainstorm at Snoqualmie Falls. About 15 years ago. I was hired as the idea monkey in the room. I was a trained brain. I was the guy who's doing, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? I think it was a shaving cream project. And I once heard him say, embrace the hate to innovate. And if you think about it, the more we hate something, the person that can come along and fix that problem, the more disruptive it's going to be. And here again, the challenge in companies is we think about what our customers love about us, and it's scary to go into the boss or say, we're really not good at this. Our industry sucks at solving this problem. Meanwhile, your customers or would-be customers going, come on, somebody, please fix this. So disruptors have the ability to find things that are really hated by the world and going, I'm going to be one that fixes this. So, meanwhile, most companies are set up to do incremental changes. They just make what they've done yesterday a little bit better today. That's what business operators are really great at doing. And in walks a disruptor. It says, what about this thing that everybody's been complaining about and you say is impossible to fix for the last 20 years? I'm going to work on that.
This segment is sponsored by Rockbox Fitness Franchising. Take control of your destiny and join the boutique fitness revolution with Rockbox Fitness. If you're ready to make a real impact in your community and own your own business that empowers people to achieve their best life, then Rockbox is the opportunity you've been looking for. They provide comprehensive support from site selection, upfit, training, and turnkey marketing, so you can open your studio with confidence and a strong recurring revenue member base. Visit rockboxfitness.com and click on franchise opportunities to learn more about this exciting venture in the fast-growing boutique fitness industry. It's time to turn your passion for fitness and for business into a thriving venture. are people, there's old, at birth, or you learn it, are you a born salesperson? Can you learn to sell? Are people born, in your experience, in your research, in your work, have you seen that, a disruptor was also the kid in high school that would, cause trouble, and the kid that was always couldn't stay still as a kid, or is this something that people just find something where they say, this is dumb and I can make this better, and they become a disruptor? Like,
It's a great question. I started a company called Flourish Advisory Boards about 3 years ago. And my intention, if you've been in a forum or a peer group or a mastermind, I've been in them for 25 years. The greatest decision I ever made as a business person was to join a forum. And I have such wonderful friends, and more importantly, have been gifted with hundreds and hundreds of years worth of wisdom, because forums bring you wisdom. People say, I did this and it was painful, so just telling you, which is a great way to avoid getting intelligent.
Yeah.
Getting intelligent is painful. And so Flourish Advisory Boards, what I've done is I pick 6 different types of C-level leaders, and I test them. And there's an operator, a strategist, a rainmaker, a visionary, a tech futurist, and an orchestrator in every room. They all run P&Ls. And what I've noticed, to your question, is they disrupt differently. So what they do is they see a problem through a different lens. Just one example is a great operator can be a disruptor. Like Jack Welch was a great disruptor, but he crunched numbers. His go-to punch was about squeezing and KPIs and metrics. Branson, who's also a great disruptor, is a visionary. He'd be in the visionary seat. He disrupted by completely changing markets. So I think there are hacks to becoming a great disruptor, and really Plan D gives you kind of the keys to the castle, like how people disrupt. And you can, put on that disruption coat through a framework or something else and be just instantly disruptive. You just have to be intentional about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Your book, Plan D, I want to say was written a few years ago, when if I read the copyright correct, but it's germane to today. But one thing I wanted to ask about is you specifically call out medical, dental, and veterinary care as ripe for disruption. Do you still hold that same stance today, or are there other industries that you feel are even more ripe for disruption?
Yeah, sadly and ironically, when I wrote the book, I had been married for about 28 years. And just after writing the book, my wife was diagnosed with brain cancer. And so I got to experience healthcare on the front lines, and it is not pretty in the US. So I stand by that there is great opportunity and need for disruption. And what I will tell you is oftentimes the disruption is hindered by rules or accelerated by rules. So COVID dramatically increased innovation because, the rules were out the window. We have to do something. And if you look at vet med, who is not encumbered by as many rules as, human medicine, disruption is happening there that could happen in human medicine. So I stand by that. All 3 of those are right for disruption.
Yeah. How do we all know that the healthcare system is broken. It's just so overburdened with extraneous costs and, wait times, and it's just broken. I spent 25 years in the pharmaceutical business before I became an entrepreneur. So I saw it firsthand. My father was diagnosed with cancer 2 years ago, and watched him go from doctor to doctor, to visit to lab. It was just ridiculous, just ridiculous to watch all of the superfluous stuff he had to do. How, though, can that industry, if we talk specifically about the medical field, because the medical field that I worked in is so entrenched by, medicine, the AMA, American Medical Association, the lobbyists are probably the best funded lobbyists of any industry. and there is a status quo that is being protected fiercely by the powers that be, because there's a lot of money that's being made. There's a lot of money exchanging hands. And how do you come in and disrupt something? Like Uber, they disrupted the taxi industry, and that was not easy. And there were physical, there was physical violence involved in that whole story and everything. But they were able to do it because they didn't have as strong as lobbying. And how do we disrupt the medical system that is trillions of dollars in value?
Yeah. Well, it's a big question, and I don't want to. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Sure.
I have all kinds of things to say about this, but I don't want to take up too much time. So let me just take a few things. So,
Sure.
Number one, I've already said to embrace the hate to innovate. So starting with a need, innovation is different than invention. Invention is having an idea and then asking people if they need it. Innovation is finding a need that's worthy of our talent and time, and then and only then coming up with a new product or service or business model that meets that need, and then launching it in a way that people go, "Oh my gosh, thank you." So I would posit that on the front lines, nurses and consumers have plenty of needs that need to be solved, but they're wishing to have solved. So starting there, ranking those needs, and then going and looking outside medicine for ways that those have been solved, and then bringing them back. So Bill Gates said, I've lost a lot of money by trying to change human behavior. And when one of the richest men in the world is worried about losing money, I pay attention. Yeah. So what you want to do is find behavior that's already happening that solves that need outside the medical industry and bring it back to them. That's one way. Another way is to look at other countries and what they're doing. Because if it's accepted there, it's easier to adopt here. What I wouldn't do is I would not ask doctors about this. So often the well-intentioned experts in an industry are the very ones that are blocking it from changing.
Yeah, yeah. That's I appreciate you sharing the quote from Bill Gates, because I own a fitness company that we franchise. We have 50 some locations that are all franchised across the nation, and the whole goal of that business is to change people's behavior. Get people out of a place of comfort into a place of temporary stress to improve their lives. And that is so much easier said than done, because you're asking somebody to change their behavior.
Yeah, innovation typically happens on the fringes, Roger. So a very dear friend of mine, Dr. Ari Levy, has a company in Chicago called Shift Health. And Ari was the team doctor for the Blackhawks, the Chicago Blackhawks. He ran concierge medicine for McDonald's and some big corporations. And he decided to start his own practice. Now, it's a high-end practice that combines physical fitness, nutrition, all the things around health. And he's trying to be more holistic about it. And so by getting outside the medical system, changing the way it's paid for, and then combining a bunch of other services, he's rapidly prototyping what healthcare could be. So there are always people within a system who are willing to step out of it to try something new. It sounds like you are one of those people.
Yeah, trying. Yeah. Okay, this one I love, and I'd really love for you to unpack this, because I have, again, this is episode 110, 10-ish, something like that, when this will come out. And I've interviewed a lot of entrepreneurs, and it is almost to the person. And I don't know if I've had a single interview with an entrepreneur or a very successful person where there wasn't evidence of childhood trauma, sometimes a capital T, sometimes a lowercase t, but that trauma that was driving them to prove somebody wrong, a chip on my shoulder. I'm going to show my dad. I'm going to show that teacher. I'm going to show whatever. And I'm no different. You just I call it trauma. You label it differently. You say the disruptors have ghosts. They have ghosts. And if you could speak to that principle.
Yeah. So when Robin Williams died, I posted something on social media. It sounded something like this: I've never met an uber successful person that wasn't either chasing a ghost or being chased by one. The question is, who's got who, or who's chasing who? And I was actually not talking about the brilliant Robin Williams. I was talking about the entrepreneurs in my life. And what I've seen is that the healthy entrepreneurs are very clear that, it's their relationship with their father or their mother or that coach that told them they never amount to anything. In the book, I talk about Jimmy Kimmel at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where at the very end, he was roasting President Obama. And he said, I want to give a shout out to my 8th grade English teacher, Mr. Schwartz. I can't remember his name. Who said I'm never going to amount to anything. Well, Mr. Schwartz, I'm about to high five the president of the United States, at which point he turns to Obama. He says, is it okay? And Obama's like, okay. So they high five each other. And then he turns to the camera and says, suck it, Schwartz. So that's an example. Yeah. And forgive me, I'm getting the English teacher's name wrong. Yeah. Maybe that's forgivable. But the point is that Kimmel was aware that the chip on his shoulder, the ghost that he was competing with, was this English teacher that said, hey, man, get your act together. You're never going to amount to anything. Yeah. We all have that. And so being aware, and it's an unfair competitive advantage, it gets us up. We fight harder. We don't give up. We're pushing against this force of nature in our head. Mm-hmm. But if we're not aware of why or who or what we're pushing against, it gets us, and really unhealthy behavior happens. So I think the game is to really do some deep work and thinking about, the ghost, and, chase it, create some KPIs, be aware that like, hey, I'm doing this, man. Yeah. And that's how you win in life. But I think too many leaders, and they're easy to think of, are still dealing with some unhealthy relationship with fill in the blank, and they turn into bullies and just really jerky people, and they have terribly unhappy lives.
Yep. I've worked for some of those people, and it's funny as you come into more self-awareness and do a lot of personal development work, you start to forgive those people because you understand that you wouldn't want to trade places with them for $1 zillion because of how much you can tell they're suffering inside, or they wouldn't be acting that way. They wouldn't be acting that way.
Yeah, Roger, there's a I mentioned that my wife got sick and subsequently passed away. And one of the things that I think about a lot is that the parenting paradox. The paradox is that we want to keep our kids from suffering, but the suffering is what makes them outstanding. So there's a straight line between that suffering, the ghost, and how do you have that relationship with that suffering that is actually productive in your life instead of destructive.
Yeah. Yeah, we probably, I'm Gen X, we probably did it more than anybody of, someone summed it up very simply, and they said, growing up, our parents told us how they were going to parent us. And we're like, okay. When we were parents, and, I have a 23-year-old and a 21-year-old, our kids told us how they wanted to be parented. Yeah. And we listened, like, whoops, do over.
Yeah, like my dad's favorite line was, because I said so. like what, I remember being 17 years old and like, come on, can we have a conversation about this?
That's great. That is great. All right. Can you speak, this also opened my eyes, and I'm going through this personal journey myself right now. You and I talked before we went on camera that we both have a connection to Rand Stagen at the Stagen Leadership Academy. Yeah. And so I'm going through this, as the ILP program, which is a lot of self-discovery. You write about in your book about going to a retreat where the facilitator said, I want you to think about a person that you admire the most, and I want you to write down the 3 attributes of that person. And then, finish that. The next, I want you to think of the person that you despise the most, and now write down the 3 attributes that you despise the most about that person. I don't want to say the punchline. Can you talk about that and how that resonated with you once it clicked.
Yeah. So shout out to John Drury, who was the retreat facilitator. He's an excellent moderator coach if you're ever doing an executive retreat. So yeah, write down 5 words that describe the person you love and respect the most. Now think of someone that you hate, which was hard for me. But at the time, I'd had someone embezzle money from one of my companies, and I was just really upset about it because he was someone in the community, and I was conflicted about, gosh, do I send the police after this person? I know his family. It was just bad. Yeah. Anyway, so that was my person. Wrote down these things. And then what we didn't know was that John asked for the contact person of who knew us the best in the world and permission to contact them. And he did. He called like our wives or partners or friends or, whoever that we put on the list. And we went through this thing and 2 things happened. Number one, when we described the person we hated the most and we described the person that we loved the most, the attributes were the opposite, and then after we got done, we had a conversation. That's really interesting. And then he opened up an envelope and read out loud the blind spot that the person that knew us the best said we had. And it was always on the list of things we hated in that other person. It was like our dark side. The reason we hated it so much, the insight is the things that we hate so much in other people or we dislike or just kind of turn our stomach is a part of us that we're constantly fighting against, And so it was stunning because everybody in the room had the same experience. It's like a gut check. So I think it was a great way to expose an insight. Now when go ahead.
And if I may ask, did you change a behavior or change an outlook or approach to, because you actually even mentioned what your blind spot was in the excerpt, but did it cause you to change any kind of behavior?
Yeah. Well, so what it did was it revealed to me that when someone is really, really upset, including me, that they're pushing against something. They're either a value is being violated or tested. And that to me is a treasure hunt worth having.
Yeah.
Oh,
like, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like someone's like, gosh, man, you seem really upset. Can we talk about that? And I'm looking for what it is that's being violated. And same with me, there have been times, and Roger, you've probably had this experience where you're just really, really upset. You don't know why.
Yeah, sure.
Like why I'm so mad.
Yeah.
And so if you can pull that thread, that's, eventually you get there. And sometimes it takes much longer than I wish it would, but it was really powerful.
I'm going to just overshare, but I think it was funny. And then she laughed, thank God. But my wife the other day, I said, how was your day? She was like, I don't know, man. She goes, have you ever had just like a low grade irritation that just won't go away? I said, yeah, I've had it since 2016, which was the year we got married.
Ooh, and then she laughed. And then you ducked.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of was already walking away as I said it, but she thought it was funny. Thank goodness. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by ThriveMore Autopilot. The latest data shows a large amount of small to mid-sized business owners are living paycheck to paycheck, and that is not why you started a business in the first place. We all start businesses to create the freedom in our lives that we want and to give us options. But to do that, you need more leads, and you need to turn those prospects into long-term paying customers. Well, the solution is ThriveMore Autopilot. ThriveMore Autopilot is the turnkey solution to take the stress and the hard work out of new customer acquisition, which is the lifeblood of any small business. ThriveMore Autopilot works on your behalf to generate a waterfall of new leads through various channels, to nurture those leads with proprietary AI solutions that mimic human interaction, to sell memberships and help you increase your monthly recurring revenue, and they even provide you coaching and your team coaching on the most effective sales techniques and give you a community of other like-minded business owners. ThriveMore Autopilot is how you scale your business without stress and the relentless phone calls and texts and reach outs to the prospects to get them to show up for that first appointment or to show up to that call. So learn how ThriveMore Autopilot can help you win big by by going to thrivemore.ai. That's thrivemore.ai. ThriveMore Autopilot, the strategic partner for small to mid-sized business owners to help you scale and live the life of your dreams. You also reference a couple different business leaders, Gina Wickman, Vern Harnish, and you talk about Vern saying, if you want to get everybody on the same page, then get everything on one page. And he, of course, Scaling Up is famous for its one-page strategic plan. But as a business leader, and here's the genesis of this question. As I'm reading this, I'm thinking that is great, and we run Traction in our business, but we also actually use Scaling Up to do our planning, but we run Traction for daily. It's kind of a weird mix, but we do that. But a disruptor and people who are disruptors, it's hard. And I've worked with them and they're great. It's hard to get them onto one page, right? It's hard to get it all on one page. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I'm laughing because I remember Charles Andrew, our CFO, once said to me, Mike, you know your problem is you're always trying to fix things that haven't broken yet or fix problems that haven't happened yet. I'm like, thanks, Charles. He said, that's not a compliment. I mentioned Flourish Advisory Boards, and the reason, one of the reasons I started it was my own experience with my own company. We had gone from 5 million to 10 million to 15 million to 20 million in revenue inside of 3-4 years. We were growing like a rocket ship, and we thought we could walk on water, and it was really an exciting time. And I had hired the smartest, most wonderful people that I could find. I mean, people that I just absolutely loved. And then we went from 20 to 18 to 16 to 15. We were having these meetings, and we didn't know what to do. We were using EOS, and we were using Scaling Up, and Vern's a good buddy of mine. And I'm calling all my friends like, what is going on? And eventually, out of desperation, we hired a coach to test us. And we used the Colby score, and it turned out that everyone in the room was quick start, except for Charles, who we were driving crazy. And so what happens is we tend to attract people that laugh at our jokes, that solve problems like us. So under pressure, how do those people behave? Well, disruptors blow shit up for the good of the whole. And in this room, every time we faced pressure, we reinvented the way we were going to solve it. We were just incapable, it seemed, of following a plan because we just had so much fun, reinventing and coming up with other ideas and other ideas. So that's a long way, forgive me, Roger, of saying it's really about balance. Having, as I mentioned, the operator, the strategist, the rainmaker, all 6 of those characters, number one. Number two, deeply respecting how they see the world. And number three, opening up frameworks like 131. What do you think the problem is? What are 3 ways to fix it? And what's your recommendation? And for all the big ideas, just hearing that out and understanding that, sometimes it is a math problem. Sometimes it is a people problem. Sometimes it is a relevance problem. But, having all those different people in the room allows you to discern, or at least consider, that there are 6 different ways to solve this. And it isn't just blowing things up.
Yeah. Actually, that was a great explanation. Thank you. I wanted to ask you, ironically, truly just ironically, you reference Rand, a guy we've already mentioned, his 2x2 matrix or the statement around prioritization. Because I was going to ask you, again, disruptors, because I've worked with a couple, and man, they can see stuff around corners that I can't see. And that's why they were very valuable in the business. But prioritization has always been a challenge when I've worked with disruptors. So how do you suggest that people that maybe are not disruptors, or haven't yet become one, wrangle the people in their companies who are disruptors, because they're so valuable to the business? But prioritization is what I've struggled with most, and I'm sure some of the listeners are feeling the same way.
Yeah, I'm writing a book about this, actually. I've been trying to not finish this book for 4 years now. It's unbelievable. I sent it to my editor, And when you do a plumbing project and you're just about finished and you over tighten something and then there's water spraying everywhere.
Yep.
That was what the conversation with my editor was like. He's like, the title was wrong. There's some big ideas here. So I was back to the drawing board. I'll give you one way to do it because it's a process. And you mentioned the 2x2, and it's how much the value is on the y-axis and the expense or time.
Cost,
and you
whatever.
want its top left is like high value, high time. Top right is high value, low time or investment. And you want to selectively invest in top left and do the top right first, if I remember correctly, and all the other stuff put off. So that's a good tool. But I think the issue, particularly with disruptors, is that they're highly divergent people that mix up all different kinds of things and make this giant hairball, mixing metaphors, this giant cocktail of issues, and it's too much to drink. It's too powerful. So the number one thing I would do is answer the question, what is the issue? What is the issue? What is the issue? Just keep pounding that and try to take apart, the Long Island iced tea of what you've mixed together and find the primary thing that is worthy of your time and fix that issue first. But that's not what we do, man. We've got like blah, 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 blah. And we've got this potent drink of issues and can't understand why we can't solve it. So I'm not sure if you're an operator, Roger, or a strategist or what your superhero power is, but the great partner of an idea monkey visionary person like me, it is able to go, okay, what's the issue? What's the issue? To the point where it's like, okay, well, let's fix that then. All those other things aren't as important as that one, right? Let's take on that.
I love that. Just what's the issue? What's the issue? What's the issue? I will probably use that later today, honestly. I have a couple of meetings later today and I will probably steal that. I really will.
And if you write stuff down, it's like whiteboard it. Oh, is that the issue? Because you'll get from someone like me, oh, there's this and there's this and there's this and there's this. Just write it down. Okay, what's the issue?
Yeah. I love it. Just a couple other questions. One is, what strategies or habits, let's use the word habits, would you suggest that leaders adopt to build resilience and to be adaptable in today's environment? Because not everything, but most everything is ripe for disruption. And most business leaders are not ready to turn on a dime and go left and go right. And so what is the habit, or I guess trait, maybe is the word I'm looking for, that you would, if you were coaching somebody, you would say, focus on that so that you have more resilience in the same framework of you also are adaptable to change.
Yeah. So I like little hacky things.
Yeah. But you always have hacks. Yeah.
One of my favorite hacks is the stop doing list. It's not dissimilar to what we just spoke about, or where it's like, let's decide what we're not going to do first. The other one, and I think this is really important and misunderstood, particularly in entrepreneur land, is valuing both grit and quit. I think that there too much is made about how we never give up. We don't let go for a better grip. And in my experience, some of the healthiest entrepreneurs are really good at quitting. They understand how to, like, I have a friend, Brad, very dear friend of mine, and I remember he started a business, and about a year, and he's like, I'm done with this business. And it was ancillary to his successful business. I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, I'm done losing money. I'm not going to do it anymore. And I would have driven that business into the side of a cliff. It would have literally been 8 years later. My investors would be like stroking my shoulders going, it's okay, man, you tried. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep trying. He's like, I'm done. So I think really being clear about knowing when to grit and knowing when to quit are both incredibly important for entrepreneurs to be healthy.
Well said. People know that anybody that listens to this show know I'm an avid reader. Again, just devouring your book as fast as I could last night because I loved it. and we'll finish it this weekend. What is a book that you've read, Mike? And you can't choose one of your own. That's cheating. But a book that you've read that when you set it down, you just thought, man, that changes my perspective on this particular topic now and forever.
I love the book, still top 3, What Happy People Know by Dan Baker. I am so grateful that I read that. I met him about 10 years ago. And what was beautiful about that book is that it kind of mashes up the physiology and psychology of happiness. And Dan was the one that taught me that it's impossible to be afraid and grateful at the same time. Which is such a simple concept. Your brain can't do it. And so whenever I'm afraid, which is like, the ugly twin sister of unhappiness, I just learned how to be grateful, being able to hold, for example, when Ruthie passed, being able to hold gratitude and grief in 2 different hands was something I credit Dan for, and a simple hack is just writing a list of 5 or 6 things you're grateful for. Put it on the nightstand next to your bed and write it down. And if you do that every day, man, it's so much easier to be happy. And if you're an entrepreneur, you have the right to be afraid.
Be afraid. Be very, very afraid. Yeah.
How many times are people like, are you kidding me? What do you do? You're not afraid? Oh, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it anyway.
Yeah. That's the funny thing is people think, wow, I wish I had, the courage. I may have the courage, but I'm scared to death right now. So just let's be clear about this. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Get that to goes.
Couple last questions. If we fast forward to the end of your life, and someone a loved one is there, and you're at your service, and a loved one is there reading your eulogy, but they're only allowed a couple words. They're allowed 3 words. They can give you 3 words, and it doesn't have to make a sentence or a cute phrase or anything. Just 3 words. What 3 words do you hope they say about you?
Oh, geez, I'd already answered the question before. I'm cheating.
No, that's fine.
I was at a dinner for business owners in Nashville a couple of years ago. We went around the table, and the exercise was an album title that described how you wanted to be remembered. And the title that I came up with was, "And Then Mike Showed Up and Life Got Better."
That's cool.
If you push connecting people and possibilities is my purpose. So that's closer to the 3 words.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. And then lastly, and we live in a crazy world right now, but that's been the case for a couple decades probably. If you could wave a magic wand, if I give you a magic wand, you can wave that magic wand and you can make one change to the world that changes the way the world operates, the way people act, the way nations work, whatever it is, but you can wave this magic wand and make one material change to the way the world is. When you wave that tonight, we wake up in the morning. How is the world different according to Mike?
My wish is that I'm going to credit Tina Smith for this. She read this and shared it with me, and it really hit me. The phrase, "What does love require from this moment?" I think is very powerful. And if people automagically showed up to every experience with other people and thought, what does love require from this moment? Life would be much better.
Yeah. I've asked that question 100 times, and not every time, but the majority of the answers have something to do with human communication and just seeing the good in others and, going at life with a position of curiosity and not judgment. And one guy said, this was several episodes, he was like, if we've been throwing rocks at each other for 6,000 years, maybe we should sit down and have a cup of coffee and figure out what's going on.
Don't get curious. Don't get furious. Get curious. Right?
Get curious. Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Hey, most important question. Obviously, your books are available where books are sold, but how can people follow you, connect with you, just be part of your journey, and maybe even work with you if they have the need?
I'm easy to find. My email is mike@mike-maddock.com. If you Google me, my contact information is out there. Roger, I said I'm on LinkedIn. I'm all over the place, but my purpose is to connect people in possibility. So if there's a way I can help you, send me a note. I'll help you if I can.
Love it. And we'll put those your email and LinkedIn direct link in the show notes, so people can just click right on that.
Thanks, Roger.
Man, I am really grateful for you coming on today. And again, from last night on, I've been incredibly excited to do this interview. So thank you for generously sharing your time today.
Well, thank you for knowing more about my book than I do. I feel like a little pressure there. Like, oh my gosh, did I write that?
Exactly. I was just making stuff up, Mike. I have no idea if that's in the book. Oh man, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
My great pleasure, Roger. I'm grateful too. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the ThriveMore podcast. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for any of the resources that we mentioned during the podcast. And if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications so you have access to the latest and the greatest. You can connect with me on any of the socials at Real Roger Martin. And be sure to check out our website, ThriveMoreBrands.com. There you'll find information on the brands we support and information on franchising. Thanks again for tuning in.